When you cross 50, the market starts shouting and time starts whispering. You feel both at once, the urge to make up for lost years and the sense that you can't afford a big mistake now. I understand that tension. It's the quiet wait in the room when you finally sit down with your numbers and say, "All right, what matters most from here?" Here's what I've learned the hard way, and it's the thread that runs through every season I've lived. The money you keep is more important than the money you chase. The most valuable advice for this stage isn't glamorous. It isn't clever. It's protective. It keeps you from being forced into bad decisions when the world gets noisy. I'm not speaking from a pedestal. I've bought things I didn't understand. I've reached for shiny yields that turned out to be traps. I've held too much cash when I should have owned a piece of great businesses. I sold once in a panic and spent years earning it back. The lessons that stuck weren't from winning. They were from not blowing myself up a second time. After a few decades, you stop trying to be brilliant and start trying to be unbreakable. I've seen the same patterns repeat. In '87, I watched quiet people become loud and then quiet again. In the late 90s, I met brilliant engineers who felt like fools because their neighbors were getting rich faster. In 2008, I watched professionals freeze and retirees sell low because their plans depended on a steady world. In 2020, I saw fear turn to euphoria in weeks. The details change. Human nature doesn't. If you're over 50 and you feel late or behind, you're not alone. I've sat with high earners who woke up at 55 with little to show for decades of work. I've talked to small business owners who had everything in one basket that cracked. I've talked to family members who did everything right, but got hurt by timing, layoffs, health, divorce, markets. Smart people still end up in trouble because the financial system is designed to reward patience and punish emotion. That's not a moral failing. It's a human one. Let me reframe what this stage is about. In your 20s and 30s, it's offense. Build skills, build income, own the market, let compounding do the heavy lifting. At 50 and beyond, you still own great businesses. You still let compounding work, but the game shifts. It becomes defense first. The goal is not to prove your intelligence. It's to make sure you're never forced into a bad sale. Never forced to sell good assets at a bad time. That single idea, avoiding permanent loss and unnecessary friction, will do more for you over the next 20 years than any hot tip, complex strategy, or news headline. You know the old line. The first rule is, don't lose money. The second rule is, don't forget the first. That's not about avoiding small declines. It's about avoiding the kind of loss that changes your behavior and your life. A 50% drop requires a 100% gain just to get back to even. That's simple math, but the meaning is heavy. If you can't wait for the recovery because you need to withdraw, or because a spike in fear pushes you to sell, that 50% drop stops being a temporary decline. It becomes permanent. If you've planned for it, if you have cash and safe assets set aside, then it's a passing winter. If you haven't, it's a long winter. Let's talk boring math, not impressive math, the kind that compounds under your feet. Imagine you have $500,000 at 6% average returns. Before fees and taxes, 20 years later you might sit near $1.6 million. The same $500,000 at 5%, just 1 percentage point lower because of fees, turnover, or chasing ends around $1.3 million. 1% didn't feel like much. Over 20 years, it quietly removed around $300,000. Nobody sends you an invoice for that. It just doesn't show up in your life. One more piece of gentle math. 2 people retire with the same $1 million. Both earn the same average return over 20 years. One experiences poor returns in the first 3 years and decent returns later. The other gets decent returns early and poor returns later. They both average the same. But the one withdrawing during the bad early years ends up with far less because the withdrawals are coming from a smaller base. The order of returns matters when you start taking money out. Most people learn that only when it hurts. You and I can learn it in calm. So the principle is this: set up your money so that you never have to sell a good asset at a bad time. Make your plan boring, low cost, and automatic, so the market storms don't blow you off the road. Own productive businesses through a broad, low-cost index. Keep a cash moat for spending. Match your risks to your time, and eliminate the costs and mistakes you can control. Defense first. That's the advice I'd give if I only had one chance to hand you something useful. Let me bring it to life with a few simple, lived lessons. Years ago, I met a man who owned pieces of 20 individual stocks. He picked them with care, read the reports, watched the news. He was about 58. He told me this gave him control. I asked what he did in 2008. He sighed. I sold the ones that scared me most. Years later, he admitted those scary ones doubled, tripled. The ones he felt safest about stagnated. He wasn't alone. Our emotions invert what's safe and scary in the moment. He moved to a low-cost index, stopped trying to outguess 20 managers with a coffee in his hand, and his life got quieter. Owning the market is not an act of surrender. It's an act of humility. It's saying, I'd rather be approximately right for 20 years than precisely wrong in a panic. Another person, a nurse, kept a year of expenses in a simple savings account. Colleagues told her she was missing out. She smiled. In 2020, when months felt like minutes and headlines were fire, she didn't sell a share. She wasn't drawing from her equities when prices were low. That cash didn't earn much. It earned something better, the ability to wait. That's your moat. 2 years of safe money is not a performance play. It's a behavior play. It builds the bridge from a bad year to a better one without burning your assets to cross it. There's a temptation at this stage to reach for yield. A bond offering 8%, a fund promising income every month, a real estate deal that can't lose. I've seen the same movie too many times. When interest rates are low, yield is manufactured. Fees hide in shadows. Risk hides behind smooth lines on a brochure. A high yield with a hidden trap is not income. It's deferred regret. Productive businesses, broadly diversified, low cost, held for years, are the patient's income machine. They don't pay you every month like a clock. They pay you across decades like a forest. Some years heavy, some years light, always regrowing. Now, about spending. If you have a portfolio and you're drawing from it, the simplest guide that has held up across many cycles is to start with 3 to 4% and adjust. If the market is rough, tighten a bit. If it's generous, let a little more through. That flexibility, even by a small amount, has a large effect. Spend $40,000 on $1 million and you're asking your money for a job it can do. Spend $70,000 and you're asking it to sprint a marathon. The difference shows up most when you least want to see it after a downturn. That's not a punishment. It's a trade-off. The most valuable thing your spending buys is not a car or kitchen. It's a longer runway. Fees and taxes are quiet thieves. You don't feel them day to day, but they take compounding off the table inch by inch. A fund charging 1% when a similar one charges 1/10 of that is not 10 times better. It's 10 times more expensive. Over 20 years, it may cost you years of freedom. A complex strategy that triggers constant capital gains might look smart in a backtest. In reality, it feeds the tax collector and starves your future self. Simpler, low turnover, long-term holding is not just easier, it's better for your after-tax life. The market pays you before tax. You live after tax. Match your money to your time. Dollars you need in the next 2 to 5 years should live where price doesn't whipsaw your sleep. treasury bills, high-yield savings, short bonds. Dollars you won't need for 10 to 20 years can live in the great productive engine of the economy, broad equities. In between, blend it like a farmer planting crops with different harvest times. Short crops for this season, long crops for later seasons. The farmer doesn't yank the wheat up to check the roots every day. He sets the seasons and respects them. I want to talk about mortgages and debt. If you're carrying high-interest debt into your 50s, this is the most reliable investment you can make. Pay it down. A guaranteed 6, 8, 12% return is rare and precious. That's what eliminating debt gives you. Sleep improves as a dividend. For a mortgage, the answer is less universal. Some people keep a low-rate mortgage and invest excess cash. Some pay it down to feel unbreakable. There's a kind of wealth in owning your roof free and clear that doesn't show up in spreadsheets. I won't argue with either choice. I will argue with carrying debt that beats you every month and calling it leverage. I should say something about when to start Social Security, because it's one of those levers that feels optional but carries real weight. Waiting increases the check. Taking it early brings cash sooner. Both have their place. What matters most is aligning the choice with your cash moat and your health, not the day's headlines or your brother-in-law's advice. If you extend your cash runway, you often buy yourself better options everywhere. There's a chapter in many people's financial lives called the complicated middle. Too many accounts, too many funds, too many statements. Complexity feels like control. It's usually friction. I've watched people go from 13 accounts to 3, from 30 funds to 2 or 3 indexes, from panic to peace in a season. You don't need to hold everything to be diversified. You need to hold enough of the right things for long enough. Own the market, own safe cash for spending, and stop negotiating with your past decisions every quarter. Attention is a currency. The news will rent your fear for ad dollars. If you check your portfolio every day, it will teach you to dislike the very thing that's making you wealthy. Volatility. We don't get paid for smooth. We get paid for enduring. One of the simplest rules I've given people my age and older is this. Check the market less than you check your blood pressure. Quarterly is plenty. Annually is often ideal. When you do look, rebalance within simple bands and go take a walk. If you let the market be background noise, it rewards you. If you make it the music in your head, it owns you. Let me tell you a small story. A woman wrote her future self a one-page letter. She called it her policy. It said what she owned, why she owned it, how much cash she kept, when she would rebalance, and the conditions under which she would do nothing. She put it in a folder called When I'm Scared. Twice in 10 years she opened it. Twice it kept her from selling. That piece of paper made her more money than any analyst on television. Write your rules when you're calm, so your future self has a map when the fog rolls in. Another piece of wisdom that doesn't feel like finance. Maintain a small amount of earned income as long as you can enjoy it. A day a week consulting, a part-time job you like, a project you care about. It's not about the dollars. It's about the optionality. Earning a little takes pressure off the portfolio, especially in the early years. It delays withdrawals when markets are rough. It keeps you engaged with the world. Longevity has a lot to do with purpose. Portfolios are healthier when their owners are. Every market has siren songs. Crypto 1 year, options the next. Real estate flips. Gold when fear swells. I'm not here to mock any of them. I'm here to remind you that the purpose of your money at 50 plus is not to entertain you. It's to free you. Freedom looks like a quiet morning that you own. It looks like saying yes to a visit, no to a boss, and never having to count on the kindness of a bull market. If a trade or a trend adds noise and risk for excitement's sake, it's asking you to swap freedom for adrenaline. That's an expensive swap. There's a myth that after 50, compounding stops mattering. I disagree. 20 years is a lifetime in the market. 30 years is 2 lifetimes. The snowball doesn't care that your hair is grey. It keeps rolling if you keep it out of the sun. That means staying invested in productive assets and cutting the friction that melts it. Fees, taxes, churn, complexity, panic. If you have less than you hoped, the same principle still applies. A calm plan, a higher savings rate for a few years, the elimination of debt, a part-time income, and a lower spending rate together can build a life you own. The curve still bends, quietly. I sometimes use a farmer's metaphor because it feels honest. A farmer doesn't rush the field because he turned 50. He respects the seasons more. He checks his fences. He keeps enough seed and cash to make it through a bad harvest. He doesn't bet the farm on a miracle crop. He plants what's always grown, in rows he can manage. He knows where the weeds creep in fear, greed, envy, impatience, and he pulls them before they choke the plants. Wealth at this stage is farming, not gambling. It's tending, not trading. Let's knit it all back to the one idea. Protect yourself from permanent loss and unnecessary friction. How do you do that? Own the market through low-cost funds. Keep enough safe cash to ride out storms without selling. Match your risk to your time. Spend a little less than feels easy. Kill avoidable fees and taxes. Simplify until you can explain your plan to someone you love in a few sentences. And most of all, create a plan that survives your worst day, not just your best. You might be wondering, is it too late? Let me offer a calm picture. 10 years from now, you're 60 or 70. You wake up, make coffee, and your day is not a negotiation. You own your time. Your investments send you checks because you own slivers of real businesses, selling real things to real people. You have a year or two of spending in safe places, so when the market goes down by 20%, as it will, you feel concerned, not endangered. You glance at your rules, you rebalance. Then you close the screen. Maybe you work a day or two a week on something that still lights your mind. Maybe you mentor. Maybe you build something with your hands. Healthcare is covered. The house is either paid off or the payment is manageable because you didn't stretch your life to fit someone else's idea of success. Your friends matter more than your funds. You go for walks. You sleep. The market is a background hum, like a distant highway, not a siren at your window. 20 years from now, the faces around your table have changed. Some are new, some are missing. Your portfolio is not the star of the show. It's the stage crew making sure the lights work and the chairs are set. It's not perfect. It doesn't need to be. It's enough. You took fewer swings than the loudest voices told you to. You dodged a few potholes. You let the boring math do its quiet work. Looking back, the most important decision you made wasn't a stock pick. It was choosing a plan that made you unbreakable. Let me leave you with this. Regret is a heavy bag to carry into your 50s, but it's not your future. Money forgives consistency and punishes drama. The principle for this stage is simple and strong enough to build a life on. Never be forced to sell good assets at a bad time. Own what endures, hold it long, keep a moat, spend with humility, kill friction, and guard your attention as you would your savings. If you enjoy this kind of quiet, long-term thinking, you might enjoy what we do here at Quiet Wealth. You're welcome to subscribe. But whether you do or don't, take this with you. Your wealth now is the accumulation of your next calm decisions. You can make them. You can start today. The market will do what it does. You can do what you choose. Freedom grows from that gap. Money is a tool. The point is not more money. The point is more life. Time to see your people. Time to read the book twice. Time to put your phone down at dinner and mean it. In the end, the richest thing you'll own is a quiet mind. Build your plan for that. So we'll keep it simple. Own productive businesses through low-cost funds. Keep 2 years of spending safe. Match your risk to your time. Spend slowly. Kill fees. Simplify. Write your rules. Check less. Live more. The big money now is made in the waiting. And the waiting is easier when you don't fear the next storm. This isn't impressive math. It's boring math. And boring math is what makes people wealthy, not on the screen, in their lives. You're not late. You're right on time for the next 20 years. Let's make them quiet and intentional. That's the work. That's the wealth.